quite all right. You don't need to be scared. I just wanted to see you up close and tell you how beautiful your family is.
In the dead quiet of an Adirondack winter, 71-year-old widow expected nothing but wind and her own ghosts. Then came a knock that didn't sound human. What answered when she opened that door? A desperate mother holding her dying child would either kill her or save her. Drop a 4 if you're ready. So listen, Margaret Peggy Sullivan was 71 years old and waiting for winter to finish what arthritis had started. The cabin sat 3 miles outside Tupper Lake, New York, deep enough in the Adirondacks. That cell service was a joke, and the nearest neighbor was a summer family who'd cleared out in October. It was January now. She was alone. Had been alone since Frank died 4 years back. Heart attack while changing the oil in his truck. Went down face first in the driveway, and that was it. 73 years old. Married 48 of them. Then, nothing. The cabin had been Frank's idea. Bought it in '98, when he retired from the paper mill in Syracuse. Thought they'd have time. Fish, hike, just be together without the grind. They got 6 good years before his knees went bad, then another 6 before she found the lump. Breast cancer. Beat it, but it took a year of hell and most of her savings. Then Frank went and died anyway, and she was stuck with the cabin and nowhere else to go. Their daughter lived in Phoenix. Called every other Sunday. Always said she'd visit. Never did. Said the cold was bad for her asthma. Peggy figured the truth was simpler. Linda didn't want to watch her mother rot alone in the woods. Didn't want to feel guilty about not offering her a room. So Linda called instead, asked how she was doing, listened to Peggy lie about being fine, and they both pretended that counted for something. The cabin was old. 1930s. Logging camp structure that some hippies had converted in the 70s. Frank had spent years fixing it up, but it still leaked cold through the windows and the pipes froze if you didn't keep the wood stove going all night. Peggy managed. Kept the fire stacked. Kept herself fed. Took her blood pressure pills when she remembered. Doctor in Tupper Lake kept telling her to move closer to town. She kept not doing it. What was the point? Closer to town meant assisted living, meant waiting rooms, meant strangers in scrubs calling her sweetie while they checked if she'd shit herself. At least here she could die with the door locked and nobody pretending to care. The storm hit on a Tuesday. Peggy knew it was Tuesday because that was trash day, and she dragged the bin to the road that morning before the snow started. Forecast called for 8 to 12 inches. They got 18 by nightfall, and it was still coming down. Wind screamed through the pines like something dying. Snow hammered the windows so hard she thought they'd crack. She added another log to the stove, checked her supplies. Bread, peanut butter, half a jar of instant coffee, 2 cans of soup. Enough for a few days if she was careful. The radio crackled with static. Power was out across half the county. She wasn't surprised. Happened every bad storm. She had candles, had firewood stacked under the tarp out back, had done this before. What she didn't have was company. Hadn't spoken to another human being in person since Christmas, when she'd driven into town for the Methodist church service. Sat in the back, didn't talk to anyone, drove home. The pastor had tried to chat her up in the parking lot, asked if she was doing okay. She'd said fine and left. People meant well, but she didn't have the energy to pretend anymore. Pretending Frank wasn't dead took everything she had. By 10 p.m., the wind was worse. It wasn't steady anymore. It came in gusts that hit the cabin like fists. Snow piled halfway up the door. She'd have to dig out in the morning, if the storm stopped, if she lived that long. The stove kept the main room warm, but the cold pressed in from every corner. She could feel it in her bones, arthritis. Doctor said there wasn't much to do about it at her age. Take ibuprofen, keep moving, don't fall. She sat in Frank's chair by the fire. Still thought of it as his chair even though he'd been gone 4 years. Still smelled like him sometimes. Cigarettes and motor oil and Old Spice. He'd quit smoking in '05 after the doctor scared him, but the smell had never left the upholstery. She didn't mind. It was all she had left. The knock came just after 11. She almost didn't hear it. The wind was so loud, hammering the walls, rattling the windows. But there it was again. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Not the sound of a branch hitting wood, not the wind. Something knocking. Peggy sat up straight. Her heart, which had been slow and tired all evening, kicked into gear. Nobody came out here in good weather, let alone in a blizzard. The driveway was half a mile long and hadn't been plowed since December. There were no tracks, no headlights, no car sounds. The knock came again, harder. She got up, slower than she wanted to, joints stiff and aching. The poker for the stove was near the door. She picked it up. Frank's old, 38, was in the bedroom, but she didn't want to leave the fire, didn't want to turn her back on whatever was outside. "Who's there?" Her voice came out thin, old lady voice. She hated it. No answer, just wind. Then the knock again, and this time it didn't stop. It became pounding, hard enough to shake the door, hard enough to make her think the hinges would give. Peggy's hand was shaking when she reached for the lock. She told herself it was the cold, told herself it was just someone lost in the storm, hiker, snowmobiler, someone who needed help. She could help. She'd helped before. This was fine. She pulled the door open. The wind hit her first, blast of snow and freezing air that stole her breath. Then she saw what was standing on her porch, and her mind went blank. It was massive, 7 feet tall, maybe more, covered in dark, matted fur that hung heavy with ice. Shoulders broad as a refrigerator, arms thick as fence posts. But it wasn't the size that froze her. It was the face, flat, almost human, eyes too large, too aware, and in those eyes, desperation. The creature held something against its chest, something small, something wrapped in its own arms, barely visible in the storm. A child. The thought came clear and immediate, bypassing logic entirely. This thing had a child. The creature didn't move, didn't step forward. It just stood there, hunched against the wind, clutching its burden, and looked at Peggy with an expression she knew. Had worn it herself when Linda was 6 and had pneumonia and the fever wouldn't break. Pure, animal terror. The fear that you're going to lose the one thing that makes your life worth living. Peggy's mouth was open. No sound came out. Her brain screamed at her to shut the door. Slam it. Lock it. Run. Hide. But her hand wouldn't move. She stood there, poker gripped in one fist, staring at something that shouldn't exist. The small shape in the creature's arms moved, made a sound, high-pitched, weak. Not quite human, not quite animal, something in between. The big one looked down at it, then back at Peggy. Its mouth opened slightly, showed teeth. Not threatening, begging. "Jesus Christ," Peggy whispered. The creature flinched at her voice, started to turn away. "Wait," Peggy heard herself say. It stopped, looked back. She should slam the door, should run, should do literally anything except what she was about to do. But the sound the small one made reminded her of Linda as a baby. That desperate, hurt cry that meant something was wrong, something bad. And the look in the big one's eyes was the same look she'd had in every hospital waiting room when Frank was sick. The look that said, "Please, please help. I don't know what else to do." Peggy stepped back, held the door open wider. The creature hesitated. Snow swirled between them. The small one made that sound again, weaker this time. The big one looked at Peggy one more time, searching her face for what? Permission? Trust? Then it ducked its head and stepped inside. Peggy shut the door behind them and locked it, not to keep anyone out, but because that's what you did. You shut the door. You locked it. You kept the cold outside where it belonged. The creature stood in her living room, dripping melting snow onto Frank's rug. It was even bigger inside, had to hunch to avoid hitting the ceiling. Peggy backed up until her spine hit the far wall. The poker was still in her hand. She didn't remember raising it. The creature ignored her. It moved to the fire, slow and careful, and sank down in front of the stove. Its movements were exhausted. Mechanical. It lowered the small shape the child to the floor and arranged it near the heat. The little one was maybe 3 feet tall, same dark fur, matted and dirty. Its eyes were closed. It was shaking. Not moving much, just shaking. The big one, the mother, Peggy's brain supplied. This is a mother ran her hands over the child's body, checking, feeling. Her fingers were almost human, thick, yes, covered in rough skin and coarse hair. But they moved with purpose, with knowledge. This was a mother checking her child for injuries. Peggy's throat was dry. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her teeth. She wanted to scream, wanted to pass out, wanted Frank to walk through the door and tell her what to do because she had no goddamn idea what to do. The mother looked up at her. Direct eye contact. Something in Peggy's lizard brain screamed danger, but she held still. The mother's eyes moved from Peggy's face to the poker in her hand, then to the kitchen behind her, then back to her face. Water. The thought came clear as a voice. She wants water. Peggy lowered the poker, kept her eyes on the mother, backed into the kitchen. Her hand found the cabinet, found a pot. She filled it from the sink, praying the pipes hadn't frozen yet. Water came out cold but clean. She carried the pot back, slow, both hands gripping it like an offering. The mother watched her approach, didn't move. Peggy set the pot down near the fire, took 3 steps back. The mother reached for it immediately, dipped her hand in, brought water to the child's mouth. The child drank, or tried to. Most of it spilled, but some went down. The mother made a sound. Low, rumbling, not aggressive, more like relief, like a sigh that came from somewhere deeper than lungs. Peggy stood there, back against the wall, watching. This wasn't real, couldn't be real. She'd read the stories, heard the jokes. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, bullshit, tourist trap nonsense, except here it was. Here they were, in her living room, drinking from her pot. The child's eyes opened, just slits. It made a small sound. The mother immediately shifted position, curling her body around it, blocking the wind that still rattled the windows, creating a shelter with her own mass. Peggy recognized that position, had done the same with Linda. Hospital bed, radiation treatments, curling around her daughter like her body could absorb the sickness, like love could be a shield. It hadn't worked. Linda got better anyway, and then Linda left, and now here was Peggy watching another mother do the same desperate thing. "You're trying to keep it warm," Peggy said. Her voice sounded strange, detached, like she was watching this happen to someone else. The mother's head turned, looked at her. There was no understanding in those eyes. Or maybe there was, and Peggy just couldn't read it. But the mother didn't move away, didn't bare teeth. Just looked at her and then back down at the child. Peggy's hands moved without asking permission from her brain. She went to the bedroom, pulled 2 wool blankets off the bed, Frank's blankets. The thick ones from the Army-Navy store that they'd bought 20 years ago. She brought them back. Approached slow. The mother tensed. Peggy stopped, held the blankets out. "For the baby," she said. Stupid. It wouldn't understand. But she said it anyway. The mother stared at the blankets, then at Peggy, then at the blankets again. Slowly, carefully, she reached out. Her hand creased. Her hand was the size of a dinner plate, touched the fabric, felt it. She pulled it close, wrapped it around the child with surprising gentleness. The little one made another sound, softer this time. The mother arranged the second blanket over both of them. Peggy backed up again, sat down in Frank's chair because her legs were shaking too hard to keep standing. The mother and child settled in front of the fire. Neither moved much, just breathed, just existed. The storm howled outside. The fire crackled, and in her living room, something impossible slept. Peggy sat in the chair and stared. Her brain cycled through explanations. Hallucination, breakdown, early dementia, carbon monoxide from the stove, anything that made sense. Nothing stuck. The blankets moved with the child's breathing. The mother's eyes opened and closed. They were real. They were here. Time passed. She didn't know how much. The fire burned low. She got up slow, watching for reactions, and added another log. The mother's eyes tracked her, but didn't show alarm. Peggy sat back down, waited, watched. Eventually she slept, not on purpose, just exhaustion finally overriding fear. When she woke, grey light pressed against the windows. Morning, the storm had stopped. The cabin was quiet, except for the fire and the wind and the sound of something large breathing near the stove. Peggy blinked, remembered, looked toward the fire. They were still there. The mother sat up now, cross-legged, the child asleep in her lap. She was looking at Peggy, not threatening, just looking, waiting. For what? Peggy stood. Her back screamed. Sleeping in the chair was never a good idea. She was too old for this. She was too old for any of this. "You still here?" she said, voice rough from sleep. The mother didn't respond, just watched. "Right. Okay." Peggy rubbed her face. Tried to think. "You're still here. That means you're still real. Which means I'm not crazy, or we're both crazy, or hell, I don't know." The mother's eyes moved to the kitchen, then back to Peggy. "Food. She wants food." "Yeah," Peggy said. "Okay. Food. I can do food." She went to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, stared at the 2 cans of soup, the bread, the peanut butter. Not much, but they'd starve if they didn't eat. All 3 of them. She put a can of soup on the stove to warm. Chicken noodle, Frank's favorite. She'd bought it for him, and he'd died before eating it. Stupid to still have it. Stupid to cry about soup. While it heated, she toasted bread. When the soup was ready, she poured it into a bowl, brought it with the toast, set it near the mother, same as the water. The mother looked at it, sniffed, reached out, and took the bowl. Brought it to the child first. The little one drank straight from the bowl, messy and desperate. When it was half empty, the mother finished the rest in 3 swallows. Took the toast, gave most to the child. Peggy watched, made herself another can of soup. They ate in silence. The fire burned. Light grew stronger outside. The day started whether anyone was ready or not. "Can't stay here forever," Peggy said, more to herself than to them. "Someone's gonna come looking. Plow driver, mail carrier, someone. And if they see you..." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. The mother watched her speak, tilted her head slightly. There was something there. Not understanding, maybe, but awareness. This thing knew she was talking, knew it meant something. "How smart are you?" Peggy asked. "You understand anything I'm saying?" No response, just that steady gaze. Brown eyes, almost human. Not quite. "Right. Okay. Doesn't matter." Peggy rubbed her temples. "You came here because you needed help. Because your baby, your child, whatever it is, it's sick, or hurt, or cold. And you knew. Somehow, you knew I wouldn't shoot you. How did you know that?" The mother shifted, drew the child closer, protective, automatic. "Yeah," Peggy said. "That's what I thought. You're just trying to keep it alive. Same as anyone." She got up, went to the window, looked out at the snow. Drifts 4 feet high. Trees bent under the weight. The driveway was completely buried. No one was coming today. Maybe not tomorrow. They had time. Not much, but some. "Okay," she said, turned back. "Okay, you can stay until the storm clears. Until your baby's better. Then you go. Deal?" The mother didn't react. Just held the child and stared at her. "Right, of course. No deal. You don't make deals." Peggy laughed. It sounded wrong. "I'm talking to Bigfoot. I'm making deals with Bigfoot. Frank would have loved this. He always said there was something out here. Said he heard things at night. I told him he was full of it. And here you are. Proof. And he's dead. And I'm the one who sees it." She stopped, blinked hard. "That's not fair. That's really not fair. The child made a sound, weak but steady. The mother immediately focused on it, ran her hands over its body again. Checking, always checking. Peggy watched. Recognized that fear, that constant monitoring. Is the fever down? Is the breathing better? Is it getting worse? She'd done that with Linda. Done it with Frank when he got pneumonia in 06. Done it until she drove herself half crazy with watching. I know what you're feeling, she said quietly. I know you're scared. I know you think if you just watch close enough, you can keep it safe, but you can't. Not always. Sometimes they get sick anyway. Sometimes they die anyway. Sometimes you do everything right, and it still doesn't matter. The mother looked up at her. For a moment, just a moment, their eyes met, and Peggy saw it. Recognition, not of words, but of something deeper. Shared pain, shared fear. The universal terror of being responsible for something you can't control. But you keep trying, Peggy said. Because what else are you going to do? She turned back to the window, watched the snow, thought about Linda in Phoenix. Linda who called every other Sunday. Linda who didn't visit. Linda who was alive and healthy and far away. She'd done everything right. Linda grew up, survived, left. That was the goal, wasn't it? Raise them, keep them safe, let them go. So why did it hurt so much? Behind her, the mother and child settled back by the fire. The cabin was warm, the storm was over, and 3 survivors waited for whatever came next. The second day was harder. Peggy woke before dawn with her neck kinked from sleeping in the chair again. The mother and child were still by the fire, but the child was restless now, making sounds, not good sounds, high-pitched whimpers that came in waves. The mother held it close, rocking slightly, but the sounds didn't stop. Peggy got up, approached carefully. The child's eyes were open but unfocused. Its breathing came fast and shallow. When she got close enough, she could feel heat radiating off its small body. Fever, she said. The mother looked at her. Those brown eyes carried something new now. Panic. Peggy knew that look, had worn it herself 100 times. When Linda spiked 104 and wouldn't come down, when Frank's pneumonia turned into something worse, and the antibiotics weren't working fast enough. That look that said, my child is dying, and I don't know what to do. Okay, Peggy said. Steady, calm. The voice she'd used in hospital rooms. Okay, fever. We can handle fever. She went to the bathroom, found the bottle of ibuprofen, looked at it. Adult dosage. 200 milligrams tablets. The child weighed, 40 pounds? Maybe 50? She did the math in her head. Broke a tablet in half. Came back with it, and a glass of water. The mother watched her approach. Tensed when Peggy got close to the child. Peggy stopped, held out the pill and water. Medicine, she said. Pointed to the pill. Mimed swallowing. Make the fever go down. Help. The mother stared at the pill. Looked at Peggy, back at the pill. She didn't take it. I know, Peggy said. I know you don't trust me. Hell, I wouldn't trust me either. But look at your baby. It's burning up. This will help, I promise. The word promise felt stupid as soon as she said it. What did a promise mean to a creature that didn't speak? But the mother's eyes held hers for a long moment, searching. Then, slowly, she reached out, took the pill, held it up to her nose, sniffed it, put it on her tongue, tasted it. Peggy's heart hammered. What if it was poisonous to them? What if their biology was completely different? What if she just killed this thing's child? The mother swallowed the pill, took the water, drank, waited. They sat there, Peggy on the floor now, a few feet away. The mother holding the child, waiting for poison or help. 10 minutes passed. The child's breathing stayed fast. Its whimpering continued. The mother's eyes never left Peggy's face. Then, slowly, the child's breathing evened out. The whimpers quieted. Its eyes closed. The mother felt its forehead with the back of her hand, the same gesture Peggy had used on Linda 1,000 times, and something in her massive shoulders released. She looked at Peggy, made a sound, low, rumbling, not words, but Peggy understood it anyway. Thank you. Yeah, Peggy said. Her throat was tight. Yeah, you're welcome. The day dragged on. Snow kept falling, but lighter now. The drifts outside hadn't grown much since morning. Peggy checked the radio. Still static. Power still out. The forecast before the storm had called for 3 days of this. Today was day 2. She rationed food carefully. The soup was gone, most of the bread. She had peanut butter, half a box of crackers, 3 eggs, and a can of beans. Not much for 3 mouths, but the mother and child needed it more. She gave them the eggs, scrambled in the pan. The mother sniffed them cautiously, then fed them to the child in small pieces. When the child had eaten, the mother finished what was left. Never took a bite before the child was done. Never. Peggy ate crackers and peanut butter and told herself she'd eaten worse. By afternoon, the child was stronger, sat up on its own. Looked around the cabin with dark, curious eyes. Watched Peggy move from room to room. When she added wood to the fire, it flinched. But the mother made a soft sound reassuring, Peggy thought, and the child settled. You're teaching it, Peggy said. Teaching it. I'm safe. The mother's eyes tracked her, always watching, always ready to move if Peggy came too close. But the violence that Peggy had expected that first night never came. There was wariness, caution, but no aggression. Just a mother protecting her young. By evening, the child tried to stand. Its legs wobbled. The mother caught it immediately, steadied it, but didn't stop it from trying. The child took 2 steps, fell, got up, tried again. Peggy watched from the chair, remembered Linda's first steps. 13 months old, in this same cabin, actually, before Frank got sick, before everything went to hell. Linda had walked from the couch to the kitchen table. 5 steps, then sat down hard on her diaper and laughed. Frank had picked her up, spun her around, called Peggy's parents to tell them, like it was the greatest thing that ever happened. Maybe it was. Looking back, maybe those were the greatest things. The small ones. First steps, first words. Saturday mornings with pancakes and cartoons. Before college, before Phoenix. Before Linda stopped calling except every other Sunday to check a box that said dutiful daughter. She was about that size, Peggy said. Didn't mean to say it out loud, but the cabin was so quiet. Your age, I mean, when she took her first steps. Right here, on that rug. The mother looked at her. The child tried another step, fell again, didn't cry, just got up. She lives in Arizona now, Peggy continued. Married a man I met twice, has a house I've never seen, sends Christmas cards with photos of people I don't know, and she calls every other Sunday, like clockwork, asks how I'm doing. I say fine. She says good. We talk for 10 minutes, then she's got to go. Always got to go. The child made it 3 steps this time. The mother made that rumbling sound. Pride, maybe, or relief. I don't blame her, Peggy said. I was the same with my mother. Couldn't wait to get away. Couldn't wait to be my own person. Then I had Linda, and I understood. You spend 18 years keeping someone alive, teaching them to walk, to talk, to be careful, to be brave, and then they leave. And you're supposed to just let them. Be happy they're gone. Be proud they don't need you anymore. She stopped, wiped her eyes. Stupid. Crying over a kid who was alive and healthy and living her own life. Peggy should be grateful, should be happy, but all she felt was empty. The mother was looking at her, direct eye contact. Something in that gaze made Peggy think she understood. Not the words, but the feeling, the weight of it. You'll have to let yours go too, Peggy said. Someday, when it's strong enough, when it's ready, and it'll leave, and you'll be alone. And you'll tell yourself that's what you wanted, but it'll hurt anyway. The child tried to climb onto its mother's lap. The mother lifted it easily, settled it against her chest, wrapped both arms around it, held on like the world was trying to take it away. Yeah, Peggy said. Hold on while you can. Night came. The cabin grew cold despite the fire. Peggy added more wood, gave the mother and child the last can of beans, ate nothing herself, told herself she wasn't hungry. It was partly true. Anxiety had her stomach in knots anyway. The storm was supposed to break tomorrow. Someone would come, the plow driver, the mail carrier, someone. And when they did, they'd see tracks, see evidence, see something that couldn't be explained. Best case scenario, they'd think Peggy had gone crazy. Worst case, she didn't want to think about worst case. You have to leave, she said. Tomorrow, when the storm breaks, you have to go back to wherever you came from. The mother watched her. The child slept in her arms. I don't want Peggy stopped, swallowed. It's not safe here. For you, people find out you exist. They'll come looking. They'll hunt you, kill you, take your baby. I can't protect you from that. Nobody can. The mother's arms tightened around the child. I know, Peggy said softly. I know you don't want to go back out there. It's cold, it's dangerous, but it's more dangerous here, with people. People are always the most dangerous thing. Silence. Just the fire and the wind. Peggy tried to sleep in the chair again. Couldn't. Kept thinking about tomorrow. About the mother and child walking back into the forest. About the cold. About whether the child was strong enough yet. About whether she was sending them to their deaths. Around midnight, she heard a sound. Looked up. The mother was crying, not making noise. But her shoulders shook. Her head was bowed over the child. In the firelight, Peggy could see wetness on her face. Tears, rolling down through the fur and dripping onto the blanket. Peggy's chest constricted. She'd seen a lot of things in 71 years, but she'd never seen anything hurt like this. Raw, silent, hopeless. She got up, moved closer. The mother tensed, but didn't pull away. Peggy sat on the floor next to them, not touching, just close. I know, she whispered. I know it's hard. I know you're scared. I know you don't want to leave, but you have to. For your baby, you have to keep it safe. Even if it means going back out into the cold, even if it means being alone. You have to. The mother turned her head, looked at Peggy. Their faces were inches apart. Peggy could smell her earthy, animal, but not unpleasant. Could see the intelligence in those eyes. The pain, the understanding. They weren't different. Not really. Both mothers, both terrified, both trying to do right by their children in a world that didn't give a shit about right. I'm sorry, Peggy said. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do more. I wish I could let you stay, but I can't. I'm sorry. The mother made a sound, soft, almost like a sigh. Then she did something that stopped Peggy's heart. She reached out, touched Peggy's face, gentle. Her massive hand covered half of Peggy's head, but the touch was careful, light, almost reverent. Peggy closed her eyes, felt the rough skin, the warmth, the weight. When she opened them again, the mother was looking at her with something that transcended language. Gratitude, grief, connection. Yeah, Peggy whispered. I know. They sat like that, until the mother pulled her hand back, until the child stirred and needed attention, until the moment passed and they were separate again. But something had changed. Some line had been crossed. Peggy went back to the chair. Saturday, watched the mother rock the child, thought about Linda in Phoenix, about Frank in the ground, about all the ways love ended, about all the ways it didn't. The third day dawned clear. Blue sky, bright Sunday. The storm was over. Peggy looked out the window and saw steam rising off the snow, melting, not much, but enough to know roads would be passable by afternoon. Someone would come. Time was running out. She turned from the window. The mother was already standing. The child was on its feet, stronger now, both of them watching her, waiting. Yeah, Peggy said. I know. She opened the door. Cold air rushed in. The mother moved toward it, the child following. They stopped at the threshold. The mother looked back. One last time, brown eyes meeting Peggy's. Peggy wanted to say something, wanted to find words that mattered. But what was there to say? Goodbye. Good luck. Stay alive. It all felt inadequate. Thank you, she said finally. For trusting me. For letting me. She couldn't finish. Didn't know how to. The mother tilted her head. Then she did something unexpected. She pushed the child forward, gently. The little one took 2 wobbly steps toward Peggy, reached out with one small hand, touched Peggy's leg, just for a second, then pulled back. Peggy couldn't breathe. The child looked up at her. Dark eyes. Frank's eyes. She thought stupidly. Linda's eyes. Every child's eyes. Then the mother called to it a sound, not words, but clear in meaning, and the child turned, walked back to her. The mother took its hand, led it through the door, into the snow, into the forest. Peggy stood in the doorway, watched them go. They moved fast despite the snow. The mother knew where she was going, had probably been watching the cabin for days before she knocked, knew the paths, knew the safe places. Within minutes, they were at the tree line. Within seconds after that, they were gone. The forest swallowed them like they'd never existed. Peggy stood there until she couldn't feel her feet, until her fingers went numb, until the sound of an engine, far off but getting closer, broke through the silence. The plow. Coming up the road, she stepped back inside, shut the door, locked it. The cabin was empty. The blankets by the fire were folded. The mother had done that, folded them, left them neat, like a guest leaving a hotel. Peggy picked up the blankets, held them. They still smelled like the forest, like the mother, like something wild that had touched her life and vanished. The plow got louder. She moved to the window, watched it approach. Big orange truck, county logo on the side. Driver, she probably knew. Normal, real, the world coming back. She pressed her face against the glass, looked toward the trees. Nothing moved out there. No sign anyone had ever been here. Just snow and pines and sky. Empty, clean, like she'd imagined the whole thing. But she hadn't. She knew that. Deep in her bones. It had happened. They had been here. And now they were gone. The plow reached her driveway. Started clearing the snow. The driver waved at the cabin. She waved back. Normal. Fine. Everything's fine. Just an old woman surviving another storm. Nothing to see. Nothing to tell. She turned from the window, looked at the cabin, at Frank's chair, at the fire that was burning low, at the blankets in her hands, at the life she'd go back to, alone, empty, waiting for the next storm, the next winter, the final one. But something was different now. Something had changed. She'd opened the door. She'd let them in. She'd helped. And for 3 days, she hadn't been alone. For 3 days, she'd mattered to someone. For 3 days, she'd been needed. Linda called that afternoon, right on schedule, every other Sunday. Hi, Mom. How are you? Peggy looked at the blankets, at the spot by the fire where they'd slept, at the forest beyond the window. Fine, she said. I'm fine. Good. The storm didn't hit you too hard. No, just snow. Lost power for a bit. But I managed. Good. That's good. Listen, I can't talk long. Linda, Peggy interrupted. Silence. Then, yeah, I love you. You know that, right? Whatever else, whatever happened or didn't happen, I love you. And I'm proud of you. And I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you're living your life. More silence. Longer. Then Linda's voice. Careful. Are you okay, Mom? Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. I just wanted you to know. That's all. Okay. Linda sounded uncertain, worried. Okay. I love you too, Mom. I know. Go on. You've got things to do. We'll talk next Sunday. Yeah. Okay. Next Sunday. They hung up. Peggy set the phone down. The cabin was quiet. But it felt less empty than before. Less like a place to die. More like a place where something had lived. Something had survived. Something had mattered. She looked at the forest. Wondered if they were safe. Wondered if they'd made it. Wondered if the child would remember her. Probably not. Probably couldn't. But the mother would. Peggy was sure of that. The mother would remember the woman who opened the door, who gave medicine, who sat with them in the dark, and Peggy would remember them for whatever time she had left. 2 years, 5 years, however long, she'd remember the night a desperate mother knocked on her door, the nights they shared her fire, the moment of connection that proved she wasn't alone, that she'd never really been alone, that all of them humans, creatures, mothers, children, were just trying to survive, just trying to love, just trying to keep going. The sun set, the forest darkened, and in her cabin, Peggy Sullivan sat by the fire and felt, for the first time in 4 years, something close to peace. But peace wasn't where this ended, because 3 weeks later, on a morning when the snow had melted and the mud was thick, she opened her door to get firewood and found the child standing on her porch, alone, shivering, covered in cuts, and behind it, written in the mud, a message that took her a moment to understand. Not words, symbols. Desperate, clear. The mother needed help, and she'd sent her child back to the only human she trusted. Peggy looked at the forest, looked at the child, looked at the symbols in the mud. "Ah, hell," she said, and went inside to get her coat. The child's eyes were wrong. Too wide, too scared. It kept looking back at the forest, then at Peggy, then back at the forest. Its small body trembled, not from cold, though it was cold, from fear. Peggy grabbed her heavy coat. Frank's old hunting jacket, actually. Canvas and wool, patched at the elbows, smelling like mothballs and the past. She hadn't worn it in years, hadn't needed to, but if she was going into those woods, she needed something warmer than her windbreaker. She found Frank's boots in the closet, too big, but she wore 2 pairs of socks, found his gloves, his knit cap. The .38 was still in the nightstand, where she'd left it 4 years ago. She checked the cylinder. Still loaded. 6 rounds. She put it in her pocket. The child watched from the doorway, shifting weight from foot to foot, anxious, desperate. "I'm coming," Peggy said. "Hold your horses. I'm old. Takes me a minute." She filled a thermos with hot coffee, grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, added the bottle of ibuprofen, gauze, tape, the antibiotic cream that was probably expired, threw it all in a canvas bag, slung it over her shoulder. The child was already moving, down the porch steps, toward the tree line, looking back to make sure she was following. Yeah, I'm coming." Her knees screamed with the first few steps. Arthritis didn't care that there was an emergency. Arthritis didn't care about anything except making every movement hurt. She gritted her teeth and kept walking. The child was faster. Of course it was faster. But it slowed when she fell behind. Waited, anxious little sounds coming from its throat. The forest swallowed them within minutes. The trees here were old-growth white pine, hemlock, birch, thick enough to block most of the light even at midday. The ground was soft with pine needles and rotting leaves. Hard to walk on, uneven. Peggy's boots caught on roots she didn't see. She stumbled, caught herself, kept going. The child moved like it, knew every step, weaving between trees, ducking under branches, never hesitating. Peggy followed as best she could. Her lungs burned, her heart hammered. She was 71 years old and hiking through wilderness like she was 30. This was insane. This was going to kill her. But the child kept looking back with those terrified eyes, and Peggy kept walking. They'd gone maybe half a mile. Felt like 5 when the child stopped, turned, made a sound, low, urgent. Then it disappeared into a thicket of mountain laurel, so dense Peggy couldn't see through it. "Wait," she called. Too loud. Her voice echoed. She winced. Quieter. "Wait. I can't, I'm too big to fit through there." But the child was already gone. Peggy stood there, breathing hard, looking at the wall of branches. God damn it. She got down on her hands and knees. Her joints protested. Loudly, she ignored them, crawled forward. Branches scraped her face, caught her coat. She pushed through anyway. The laurel opened into a small clearing, natural depression in the earth, surrounded by rocks and fallen trees. Good shelter, hidden. You'd never find it unless you knew it was here. The mother was lying against one of the fallen trees. Even from 15 feet away, Peggy could see something was very wrong. The child ran to her, climbed onto her chest, made desperate sounds. The mother lifted one hand slowly, like it weighed 100 pounds, and touched the child's head. Gentle, reassuring, but her arm shook with the effort. Peggy moved closer, careful, watching for any sign of aggression. But the mother just watched her come. No threat in her eyes, just pain. Jesus, Peggy whispered. The mother's left leg was mangled, not just injured, destroyed. Bones showed through torn muscle. Blood dark, almost black, soaked the fur and the ground beneath her. A lot of blood, too much blood, and the smell infection. Already in the cold. That shouldn't be possible, but there it was. What happened? Peggy knelt beside her. The mother flinched, but didn't pull away. Did you fall? Get caught in something? Then she saw it, 20 feet away, half hidden in leaves. A trap, old style, steel jaws. The kind hunters used illegally. The kind that were supposed to be banned but never quite disappeared from these woods. Oh, honey, Peggy said. Oh no, the mother must have stepped in it. Must have fought to get free. The jaws had clamped through muscle and bone. She'd torn herself loose. Peggy could see chunks of flesh still caught in the metal teeth. But the damage was catastrophic. No hospital, no antibiotics, just blood loss, and infection, and time running out. The child whimpered, pushed against its mother's chest. The mother made soothing sounds, but her eyes stayed on Peggy, desperate, pleading. Fix this. Please, fix this. I'm not a doctor, Peggy said. Her voice shook. I can't. The mother's hand moved, slow, shaking. She touched the child, then touched her own chest, then pointed at Peggy. The meaning was clear. If I die, take care of my child. No, Peggy said. No. You're not dying. You're not, I won't let you. But even as she said it, she knew. The leg was beyond saving. The infection was spreading. In a hospital, with surgery, with massive antibiotics. Maybe. But here, in the forest, with nothing but a first aid kit and expired antibiotic cream. The mother knew too. Peggy could see it in her eyes. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was asking for something else, something harder. Peggy's hand found the gun in her pocket. The mother's eyes followed the movement, understood, but she didn't react, just kept touching the child, kept making those soothing sounds, preparing it, saying goodbye the only way she could. I can't, Peggy said, tears running down her face now. I can't do that. Don't ask me to do that. The mother looked at her, brown eyes, filled with pain and fear and love. So much love it was unbearable to see. Then she took Peggy's hand, her massive hand, wrapping around Peggy's, and brought it to the child's head, held it there. The child looked up, confused, scared, not understanding. The mother made a sound, deep, final, a request, a plea, a mother's last wish. Take care of my baby. Please, promise me, take care of my baby. Peggy sobbed, once, hard, then swallowed it down, nodded. Yeah, okay, I promise. I'll take care of your baby, I promise. The mother's hand tightened on hers, then released. She pulled the child close, held it, rocked it, sang to it wordless sounds, but unmistakably a lullaby. The child settled against her chest, still scared, but trusting, because its mother was there, because mothers kept you safe. Peggy stood, took the gun from her pocket. Her hand shook so badly she almost dropped it. She'd never shot anything in her life. Frank had tried to teach her. She'd refused, hated guns, hated violence, hated all of it. But this wasn't violence. This was mercy. She walked around behind the mother, The mother didn't turn to watch, just kept holding the child, kept singing, trusting Peggy to do what needed to be done. Peggy raised the gun, aimed at the base of the skull, quick, painless, the way Frank had taught her, the way you ended suffering. Her finger found the trigger, squeezed. The shot cracked through the forest. Birds exploded from the trees. The mother slumped forward, still, silent. The lullaby ended. The child screamed, high-pitched, terrified. It pushed against its mother's body, tried to wake her, shook her, screamed again and again. The sound was worse than anything Peggy had ever heard, worse than the gunshot, worse than the silence after. Pure grief, pure loss, pure understanding that something irreversible had just happened. Peggy dropped the gun, fell to her knees, vomited into the leaves. Her body shook, her mind went blank. She just killed. The child screamed again. Smaller now, broken, lost. Peggy wiped her mouth, forced herself to stand, forced herself to move. The child saw her coming and scrambled backward, away from her, away from the gun, terror in its eyes. "I'm sorry," Peggy said, voice raw. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She asked me to. She wanted I'm sorry." The child pressed itself against a rock, shaking, watching her with those huge eyes, not understanding, just knowing its mother was dead and Peggy had done it. "She was dying," Peggy said, trying to explain, knowing it was useless. "She was in pain. I had to. She asked me to." The child whimpered, curled into itself. Peggy's heart broke. Again. Differently this time, because she'd promised to take care of this creature. And now it was terrified of her. Now she was the monster. She sat down, 10 feet away, not approaching, just sitting, waiting. The child watched her, breathing fast, ready to run. "Your mama loved you," Peggy said quietly. "That's why she did what she did. She brought you to me because she knew. She knew I'd take care of you. She trusted me. And I promise, I'll keep that promise. But you got to trust me too. You got to let me help." The child didn't move, just stared, traumatized, lost. Peggy opened the canvas bag, took out the thermos, poured coffee into the cap, set it on the ground between them, pushed it forward, then pulled back. "You're hungry," she said, "and scared, and your mama's gone. I know it hurts, but you can't stay here. It's not safe. There are traps. There are hunters. There are things that'll kill you if you're alone. You need to come with me, just for a while, just until you're bigger, until you're strong enough to survive on your own." The child looked at the coffee, then at Peggy, then back at its mother's body. "I know," Peggy said. "I know you don't want to leave her, but she's gone, honey. She's not coming back, and she wouldn't want you to die here. She'd want you to live. That's what mothers want, always, for their babies to live." Silence. Just the wind in the trees, the sound of the forest that didn't care about grief or loss or broken promises. Slowly, so slowly, the child moved forward, reached for the coffee, took it, drank. Its eyes never left Peggy's face. Still scared, still traumatized, but thirsty enough, desperate enough to take the risk. "That's it," Peggy said. "That's good. Here, have some more." She poured more coffee. The child drank. When the thermos was empty, Peggy stood. The child flinched, but Peggy just pointed toward the laurel thicket, toward the path back to the cabin. "Come on," she said. "Let's go home." The child looked at its mother one last time, made a sound, soft, broken, a goodbye. Then it turned, followed Peggy into the thicket, into the forest, leaving its mother behind. The walk back took twice as long. Peggy's body was shutting down. Shock, exhaustion, the weight of what she'd done. The child walked beside her now, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, but always close, like it had nowhere else to go. Like Peggy was all it had left, which was true. Christ, that was actually true. They reached the cabin just before dark. Peggy's legs barely made it up the porch steps. She opened the door. The child hesitated, then entered, went straight to the spot by the fire where it had slept with its mother, lay down, curled into a ball, and didn't move. Peggy built up the fire, made soup, set a bowl near the child. It didn't touch it. She ate her own. Tasted like nothing. Her body needed fuel. She made herself swallow. Night came. The child stayed, curled in the same position. Not sleeping, not moving, just lying there, grieving. Peggy knew that position, had been in it herself after Frank died, after Linda left, after every loss that mattered. That place where you're so deep in pain you can't even cry anymore. You just exist and hurt and wait for it to stop hurting. It never does. But eventually, you learn to carry it. Eventually, you learn to breathe around the weight. She brought a blanket, laid it over the child. It didn't react. She sat down in Frank's chair, watched the fire, thought about the mother lying dead in the forest, about the gunshot, about the promise she'd made. What the hell was she going to do? She was 71 years old, living alone, barely feeding herself. And now she had a child, not human, not pet, something else. Something that needed care, protection, teaching, love. She couldn't do this. She was too old, too tired, too broken. But she'd promised. The child made a sound in its sleep. Small, wounded. Peggy got up, knelt beside it, put her hand on its shoulder. It flinched, but didn't pull away. She stayed there, hand on its shoulder, quiet, present, until the child's breathing evened out, until sleep finally came. "I don't know what I'm doing," Peggy whispered, "but I promised your mama, and I keep my promises." Days passed. The child ate. Slowly, not much, but enough. It slept by the fire, followed Peggy from room to room, never let her out of sight, like it was terrified she'd disappear too, like she was the only anchor in a world that had suddenly become incomprehensible. Peggy talked to it, constantly, about nothing, about everything, about Frank and Linda, and the cabin, and the forest. She didn't know if it understood, didn't matter. The sound of her voice seemed to calm it, seemed to remind it that it wasn't alone. She taught it things, how to work the wood stove without getting burned, how to tell which berries were safe, how to walk quietly in the forest. The child learned fast, watched her, copied her, adapted. At night, Peggy would sit in Frank's chair and watch the child sleep, wonder what would happen when it was grown, when it was too big for the cabin, too obvious, too dangerous to keep around people. But that was years away, maybe. And Peggy didn't have years. Doctors said 2, maybe 3. Heart was still ticking down, every day closer to stopping. So she had time, not a lot, but some. Enough to raise this child, enough to keep her promise, enough to matter to someone one last time. Linda called on Sunday, right on schedule. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" Peggy looked at the child. It was watching her, always watching. "I'm good," she said. "Really good, actually." "Really?" Linda sounded surprised. That's great. You sound different." "Do I?" "Yeah, less. I don't know. Less tired, I guess. Maybe I'm not as tired." "Well, good. That's good. Listen, I was thinking maybe I could visit in the spring, when the weather's better. It's been a while." Peggy's throat tightened. "I'd like that." "Yeah? Yeah, I'd really like that." Okay. Good. I'll make it happen. I promise." They talked for 20 minutes, longer than usual, about real things, about Linda's life, about Peggy's garden plans for spring, about memories from when Linda was small. Good memories, the kind they'd both forgotten they had. When they hung up, Peggy felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, not a lot, but a little, enough to matter. The child made a sound. Questioning. Peggy smiled. "That was my daughter," she said. "She's coming to visit. In the spring, you'll probably be gone by then, back in the forest, living your life. But maybe not. Maybe you'll stick around. Maybe I'll figure out how to make this work." The child tilted its head, watching her, trusting her, needing her. "Your mama chose me," Peggy said. "Out of all the places she could have gone, all the people, she chose me. Must have been watching the cabin. Must have known I was alone. Must have thought, hell, I don't know what she thought. That I was safe, that I'd help, that I'd care." She paused, looked at the fire, at the cabin, at the life she'd thought was over. "And she was right," she said. "I do care. I will help. For whatever time I've got left, 2 years, 5 years, however long. You're mine now, and I keep my promises." The child moved closer, leaned against her leg, just for a moment, then pulled back. But it was enough. Connection, trust, the beginning of something. Peggy put her hand on its head, felt the coarse hair, the warmth, the life. "We'll figure it out," she said, "together. One day at a time. That's all anyone can do." Outside, winter was ending, snow melting, ice breaking, the forest waking up. And in her cabin, Peggy Sullivan, 71 years old, heart failing, time running out, found something she'd thought was gone forever. Purpose, connection, love. Not the life she'd planned, not the life she'd wanted, but a life that mattered, a life that meant something. A life where opening a door on a stormy night led to this. A child to raise, a promise to keep, a reason to keep breathing. Frank would have loved this, would have called her crazy, would have helped anyway, would have been proud. And maybe Linda would understand when she visited in spring, when she saw that her mother wasn't just surviving anymore, wasn't just waiting to die, was actually living, actually needed, actually happy. Maybe, maybe not, but it didn't matter. Because for the first time in 4 years, Peggy wasn't alone, and she wasn't giving that up. Not for anything, not for anyone. The child fell asleep against her leg. Peggy stayed still, watching the fire, feeling the weight, the warmth, the trust. "I got you," she whispered. "Your mama trusted me, and I got you, I promise." The fire burned, the forest breathed, and 2 survivors, one old, one young, sat together in the quiet. Different species, different worlds, but bound by the same things that bind all living creatures, who love and hurt and keep trying anyway. Loss, hope, the desperate need to matter, and the simple, terrible, beautiful truth that none of us make it alone. That's Peggy's story. For everyone who dropped a 4 at the start, appreciate you sticking around. Sometimes the stories that break your heart are the ones that put you back together. More next Friday.